The day was overcast, the sky a dull sheet of gray, as Alan Trellis trudged through the craggy landscape that led to the forgotten shipyard. His boots crunched against the rocky ground, the only sound accompanying him besides the occasional gust of wind. He had made this trek every Sunday for the past 3 years, always at the same time, rain or shine. It was a ritual born of longing, a tether to a world that had faded from relevance in a society that no longer reached for the stars. The shipyard was a desolate place, a graveyard of dreams and ambitions. Once, it had been a hub of activity, where engineers and astronauts prepared humanity's great vessels for voyages into the cosmos. Now, it was a ruin, abandoned when interstellar exploration fell out of favor and humanity turned inward, content to live within the confines of Earth. Rusting hulls of decommissioned ships jetted out from the Earth like forgotten monoliths, their names and insignias faded beyond recognition. But among the relics, there was one ship that called to him, the Helios. Unlike the others, it seemed to resist the decay of time. Its sleek, angular design still held an air of majesty, even as ivy crept along its edges and dust coated its once polished exterior. The Helios had been an exploratory vessel, one of the last to leave Earth before the program was shut down. Alan had heard stories about it during his time in the astronaut corps, tales of its resilience and the loyalty of its crew. Alan climbed the makeshift ladder he had built early in his visits, pulling himself into the ship through a side hatch. He knew the interior as well as his own home. The corridors, though dim and musty, were a sanctuary. He made his way to the cockpit, the heart of the Helios, where he spent most of his time. The cockpit was a time capsule. The captain's chair, though worn, still bore the faint outline of the insignia stitched into its backrest. The control panels, dusty and cracked, displayed a complexity of buttons, levers, and touch screens that Alan never dared tamper with. Instead, he would sit in the chair, staring out of the wide viewport that framed the horizon. Beyond it, the skeletal remains of other ships dotted the landscape, a silent audience to his weekly vigils. As he settled into the chair, Alan leaned back and let his thoughts wander. He remembered the exhilaration of launch days, the way his heart raced as the countdown reached 0. He remembered the weightless embrace of space and the infinite expanse of stars. But most of all, he remembered the camaraderie of his crew, their laughter echoing in the confines of their ship as they worked toward a common goal. Those days felt like another lifetime. On this particular Sunday, a strange unease settled over him. The air inside the cockpit seemed heavier, the silence deeper. He dismissed it as nostalgia taking a toll on his mind. Still, he found himself speaking aloud to the empty room, as he often did. "You must have been something in your prime," he said, his voice soft but filled with a wistful admiration. "Out there, chasing stars. Bet you saw things the rest of us can't even imagine." He ran his hand over the console, tracing the contours of buttons long and used. If the Helios could speak, what stories would it tell? Alan had spent countless hours pondering that very question, imagining the ship as a living entity, one that had shared in the dreams of its crew. A low groan echoed through the hull, startling him. It wasn't unusual for the ship to make noises, metal contracting in the cool air or wind slipping through the cracks. But this sound was different, almost deliberate. He froze, his hand lingering on the console. "Just the wind," he muttered to himself, though his heart raced. He lingered for a while longer, watching the light outside fade as the overcast sky deepened. The Helios remained silent, its secrets locked away. With a sigh, Alan rose from the chair and began to climb back down the ladder. He paused before leaving, turning back to glance at the ship's interior one last time. "See you next week," he said softly. The wind howled as he descended, carrying with it an eerie sense of foreboding. Alan couldn't shake the feeling that something had changed, that the ship he visited every week was waiting for something or someone. But what, he could not say. He walked back toward the horizon, the Helios standing silent and still behind him, its shadow growing long in the fading light. Alan arrived at the Helios the following Sunday under a piercing blue sky, the sun casting harsh shadows across the desolate shipyard. The uneasy feeling from the previous week still lingered in his mind, but he pushed it aside. The trek to the ship had become a ritual of comfort, and he wasn't about to let a few strange sounds disturb his peace. He climbed the familiar ladder, entered through the side hatch, and made his way to the cockpit. The air inside the ship was cooler than usual, tinged with a faint metallic scent that hadn't been there before. He hesitated as he stepped into the cockpit, his boots echoing on the metal floor. Something felt different. "Hello, old friend," he said out of habit, his voice breaking the silence. He ran his hand over the console as he always did, but this time, a low hum vibrated beneath his fingertips. Alan froze, his breath catching in his throat. The hum grew louder, and the console suddenly flickered to life. Lights that had been dormant for decades burst into brilliance, illuminating the cockpit in hues of blue and green. The screens on the control panel flickered, displaying static interspersed with bursts of cryptic symbols. Alan stumbled back, his heart pounding in his chest. "What the?" he muttered, staring at the revived console. Before he could gather his thoughts, a synthetic voice, smooth and feminine, spoke from the ship's intercom. The sound was both startling and oddly familiar. "Emergency protocol activated. Welcome back, Alan Trellis." Alan's legs felt weak, and he dropped into the captain's chair. His name echoed in his ears. The ship knew him. "How?" "I don't understand," he said aloud, his voice shaky. "I've never been part of this ship's crew. How do you know who I am?" The console responded, its screens displaying a rapidly shifting sequence of text and symbols. The voice spoke again, this time with a clarity that sent chills down his spine. "Identity confirmed. Mission parameters encoded. Playback initiated." Alan had no time to react before a holographic projection burst from the center of the console. He gasped as the image took form. It was a younger version of himself, dressed in a sleek astronaut suit, standing tall and confident. The hologram's eyes locked onto Alan as if it could see him. "Alan," the hologram began, its tone firm but urgent, "if you're seeing this, it means something has gone terribly wrong. The Helios was never decommissioned, it was hidden, its systems locked until the right conditions were met. Those conditions have now been triggered." Alan's mind raced, trying to process the revelation. The hologram continued. "You were part of a classified mission, one you've likely forgotten. That's by design. Your memory was altered for your own safety. The Helios holds data vital to humanity's survival, encoded in its core systems. A discovery was made, something we couldn't fully understand, but knew was critical. You were chosen to safeguard that knowledge." The hologram paused, its gaze unwavering. "The ship has detected an anomaly, a signal originating from the outer reaches of the asteroid belt. The same signal we intercepted before the Helios went silent. This is your mission, Alan. Find the source. Unlock the truth." The projection faded, leaving Alan in stunned silence. His heart thundered in his chest as he stared at the now dormant console. His mind reeled at the implications. A classified mission? Altered memories? The Helios ship he thought was a relic was far more than it seemed. I don't remember any of this," he whispered, his voice trembling. As if in response, the console came alive again, this time displaying a map of the solar system. A red dot blinked in the asteroid belt, accompanied by a series of coordinates. The ship's intercom crackled to life. Course plotted. Systems initiating startup sequence. Alan felt the Helios shudder beneath him as its engines roared to life for the first time in decades. The vibrations coursed through the ship, filling the air with a sense of purpose. He gripped the armrests of the captain's chair, his thoughts a whirlwind of confusion and excitement. "Wait," he shouted, though he wasn't sure who he was speaking to. "I can't just go. I don't even know what I'm doing." The voice responded, calm and resolute. "You are the only one who can complete this mission, Alan. prepare for departure. The cockpit's viewport brightened as the Helios began to rise. Alan could see the shipyard shrinking below, the abandoned vessels like forgotten toys scattered across the ground. Panic mixed with exhilaration as he realized there was no turning back. As the ship ascended into the sky, Alan's grip tightened. The Helios was no longer a silent relic. It was alive, and it had chosen him for a purpose he barely understood. For the first time in years, Alan felt the pull of the stars, the promise of discovery and the weight of a mission he had yet to uncover. The Helios hurtled through the void, its engines humming with a power Alan hadn't thought possible for a ship dormant for decades. The cockpit lights flickered rhythmically as the ship's systems synchronized, a symphony of mechanical precision. Alan sat in the captain's chair, his hands gripping the armrests. His thoughts raced, torn between fear and awe at the situation he'd been thrust into. The hologram of his younger self replayed in his mind, its message clear yet incomprehensible. He had no recollection of the mission it spoke of, no memory of the anomaly that had sparked it all. And yet, as he gazed at the blinking red on the console's map, he felt a strange familiarity, a sense of purpose buried deep within him. Course locked, the ship's AI chimed, its voice steady. Estimated time to anomaly coordinates, 72 hours. Alan exhaled shakily. 3 days, he muttered, leaning back in the chair. 3 days to figure out what the hell is going on. The first day passed in a haze of restless exploration. The Helios was fully operational, its corridors lit and systems functional as if it had never been abandoned. Alan ventured through the ship, reacquainting himself with its layout. He found the engine room humming with energy, the med bay stocked with supplies, and the crew quarters eerily preserved, as though their occupants had simply stepped out for a moment. In the mess hall, Alan stumbled upon a storage locker. Inside, he found old flight logs, mission reports, and personal items left behind by the ship's former crew. Among them was a photo of a younger Alan standing with a group of astronauts, their faces alight with excitement. He turned the photo over to find a handwritten note, "To the best damn team in the galaxy. See you on the other side. Alan." The discovery left him reeling. The faces in the photo sparked vague recognition, but no concrete memories surfaced. He pocketed the picture and returned to the cockpit, determined to uncover the truth. On the second day, Alan focused on the ship's database, searching for answers. The AI proved cooperative but frustratingly cryptic. "Why don't I remember this mission?" he asked, pacing the cockpit. "Memory suppression was deemed necessary," the AI replied. The mission required absolute discretion. Only key personnel were given access to the full details. Key personnel? Alan shot back, exasperated. "I'm sitting here on this ship, aren't I? That makes me key personnel." "Access restricted," the AI responded, its tone calm but unyielding. Alan slammed his fist against the console. "What are you hiding from me?" The AI hesitated before responding. "The anomaly is not just a signal. It is a gateway, a doorway to an artifact of immense significance. Your involvement was critical in its discovery." Alan frowned. "A gateway? Artifact? What does that mean?" "Coordinates locked," the AI said, effectively ending the conversation. By the third day, the Helios approached the coordinates, and the ship's systems grew increasingly active. Alarms chimed softly as the navigation console displayed a growing cluster of asteroids, dense and foreboding. The anomaly was located deep within the Belt A region known as the Feynman Abyss, notorious for its chaotic gravitational fields and high debris density. Alan strapped into the captain's chair as the ship began its approach. The cockpit lights dimmed, and the viewport filled with a stunning but dangerous sight. Giant asteroids tumbled through space, their surfaces glinting in the faint light of distant stars. The Helios navigated deftly, its thrusters firing in precise bursts to avoid collisions. As the ship drew closer to the anomaly's location, the red dot on the map began to pulse, faster and faster, until it became a constant glow. Alan's pulse quickened as the AI announced, "Anomaly detected." Initializing proximity scan. Outside, a massive structure loomed into view, hidden among the drifting rocks. It was unlike anything Alan had ever seen. The artifact was an enormous, symmetrical construct, its surface covered in intricate patterns that shimmered with a faint, otherworldly glow. It appeared ancient yet advanced, as though it defied the boundaries of time. The Helios slowed to a crawl, inching closer to the artifact. Alan leaned forward, his eyes wide with wonder. The ship's scanners began to analyze the structure, flooding the console with data. "Scan complete," the AI announced. "The artifact is emitting a signal. Translating now." A moment later, the cockpit filled with a low, melodic hum that resonated deep in Alan's chest. The console displayed a series of alien symbols, which gradually morphed into a language he could understand. "Welcome, traveler," the message read. "You have found the key to the Gate of Worlds. Enter and discover." Alan's breath hitched as a section of the artifact began to shift, revealing an opening large enough for the Helios to pass through. The ship's AI awaited his command. Alan stared at the gateway, his mind racing. He was standing on the precipice of something extraordinary, something that could redefine humanity's place in the cosmos. With trembling hands, he gripped the controls and spoke the words that would change his life forever. "Take us in." The Helios drifted forward, its engines humming softly as the ship crossed the threshold of the artifact's gateway. The transition was almost imperceptible, a subtle shimmer, like stepping through a veil. Alan watched in awe as the view outside the cockpit shifted from the cold, dark emptiness of space to a swirling expanse of light and color. The gateway was a tunnel of luminous energy, its walls alive with patterns that danced and morphed like living organisms. The ship's systems buzzed with activity, interpreting the energy field and adapting to its strange properties. Alan's grip on the controls tightened, his heart pounding. Every instinct told him this was uncharted territory, a realm no human had ever entered before. Analyzing environment, the ship's AI reported, its calm voice a stark contrast to the chaos outside. "Stable passage detected. Estimated transit time, 2 minutes." Alan leaned forward, his eyes locked on the shifting patterns. "Where does this lead?" he murmured, half to himself. "The destination is unknown," the AI replied. "Signal origin is located beyond this threshold. Proceed with caution." The tunnel's end came into view, a brilliant burst of white light that expanded as the Helios approached. Alan shielded his eyes as the ship crossed into the unknown, emerging into a vast, star-studded expanse unlike anything he had ever seen. The space beyond the gateway was filled with celestial bodies, planets, moons, and glowing nebulae arranged in patterns that defied natural law. In the distance, a colossal structure floated, its design eerily similar to the artifact they had entered. The ship's AI pinged urgently. "Signal locked. The source is located within the central structure. Scans indicate the presence of an artificial intelligence." "Another AI?" Alan asked, his voice tinged with disbelief. "Affirmative," the AI confirmed. "Preparing for direct communication." As the Helios closed in on the structure, a beam of light shot out from its surface, enveloping the ship. The cockpit filled with a soft, resonant tone, and a voice echoed through the intercom, a voice that was neither human nor mechanical, but something entirely alien. "Welcome, Alan Trellis," the voice said, each word vibrating with a melodic cadence. "You have arrived at the Nexus, the heart of the Gate of Worlds. Your presence here signifies the culmination of your species' quest for understanding." Alan's throat tightened. What are you?" "I am the Archivist," the voice replied. "A sentinel of knowledge and a keeper of the gateway. You have been chosen to deliver a message that transcends your world." Before Alan could respond, the Helios's cockpit darkened, and a holographic projection engulfed the space. It displayed a sprawling network of interconnected galaxies, their paths converging at the nexus. The archivist's voice narrated the images. Long ago, countless civilizations sought the answers to existence, forging a union of shared knowledge and cooperation. This nexus was their creation, a bridge between worlds, a testament to unity. But the network has grown silent. The gate of worlds has waited, dormant, for those who would reignite the connection. The projection shifted, showing Earth. Its blue surface shone brightly among the stars. Your world has reached the threshold, the archivist continued. Your species has the potential to join the great convergence, to share in the wisdom of those who came before. But the choice is yours. The nexus does not compel. It invites. Alan felt a lump in his throat. The weight of the moment pressed down on him. What happens if we don't accept the invitation? He asked quietly. The nexus will remain, the archivist replied. Its knowledge inaccessible. Its power untapped. Your species will continue, as it always has, until it is ready. Alan thought of Earth, of the people he'd left behind. He thought of the conflicts, the struggles, and the endless pursuit of progress. The invitation was both a gift and a challenge, a chance to transcend, but at the cost of leaving behind the familiar. What do I need to do? He asked. Deliver the message, the archivist said. Return to your world and share what you have seen. Guide them to the nexus when they are ready. The projection faded, and the Helios' systems hummed back to life. The ship turned, its course set for the gateway. Alan sat back in the captain's chair, his mind racing. He had come seeking answers, and he was leaving with a responsibility he hadn't anticipated. The journey back through the gateway was brief, but the return to normal space felt surreal. The asteroid belt seemed small and mundane compared to the grandeur of the nexus. As the Helios settled into orbit above Earth, Alan gazed out at the planet, a quiet determination forming within him. He had a story to tell, a message to deliver. The future of humanity would depend on how they responded to the invitation, on their willingness to reach for the stars once more. As the Helios prepared for re-entry, Alan whispered to himself, it's not just about what we found out there. It's about what we become because of it. The ship descended, carrying with it the hopes of a planet unaware of the choices that lay ahead.